Hi, welcome everyone to the DevOps and Compliance meeting. I'm Davide, Engineering Manager of the platform team. We are in charge of the cloud infrastructure, and recently we noticed concerning trends and increasing costs. And that's why we come up with a bunch of guidelines and rules that you will have to follow and you will have to implement in the next couple of weeks.
Hold on. Will this break our deployments? We already planned our sprint release and don't have capacity to deal with compliance, and all of a sudden. Was this discussed with our project managers?
No, it was not. You have your deadlines, we have ours. Compliance is a company goal. And we all have to deal with it.
Oh, we'll see. I will escalate this to my AM.
Let's stop it here. This is not a good start, and it's going to end poorly. But it doesn't have to be this way. I'm Davide De Paolis. I am engineering manager of the platform team at Safdesk, and I live in Hamburg since 2013, but I come from Milan, and I'm super happy to be here talking. I am an AWS community builder, and besides leading teams and advocating serverless, I usually spend my time climbing and listening to black metal. A little bit of context. Safdesk is a small company from the south of Germany, Offenburg, that was founded in 2013. We build accounting software for freelancers and small businesses. As all the startups, it started with a bunch of developers, like 12 probably, and then it grew. Now we are 300 employees, 85 engineers, 15 teams, and as soon as the company started to grow, it was clear that the necessity of an operation team, platform team, was there. So the most talented or the most willful engineers that had experience with DevOps were picked from the team to start this core of platform engineering. These engineers were super enthusiastic and very talented as well. But there was a problem. They really wanted to do too much. And they started building the platform on top of the setup that Safdesk had at the time, which was very basic. One account, 2 clusters, and development and production. And they wanted to create a cloud center of excellence, service catalog, internal development platform. But despite the company being on AWS, and since the beginning always cloud native, they, for fear of vendor lock-in, they didn't leverage the offering from AWS. So what they did was introducing a plethora of tools, third-party tools, that had to be self-hosted on this cluster. Keycloak for access management, Rancher to manage the cluster, to allow the engineering to have a UI to manage the cluster, Arbor for image, as an image repository, Longhorn for block storage. They had too much stuff to do. They had to maintain and patch and keep these services running, and they could not focus on the main goals of the team. So much that the team burned out. It was dissolved because they were not meeting their goals. This is when a couple of accountants move away from this basic setup and introduce AWS organization and create accounts for the different environments and for the different that allows isolation of to the different application and teams. And most importantly, allows quota allocation. Each service has limits. Some are hard, very easy that you're going to eat them. So having this separation also helps here. And ultimately, cost allocation. If you have different accounts, you can create budgets and have set up these with the goal of rebuilding the team. And I hired some very skilled senior cloud engineers. And we all decided, let's focus only on what is necessary, not spend time and resources on maintaining things that are not our core business. So we removed Keycloak and moved to single sign-on and identity center. Of all these, we could focus only on what really mattered for us and for security, and we were happy. Security was very happy. The developers less, because cloud engineering is very hard. And it requires a completely different mindset for a developer. Change is hard, even more. By changing, even simply, Arbor to ECR and these multiple accounts, all the stuff, because their goal is to build new features, not keep up to our changes. So we knew that, and we to answer questions. It really was a help center where people were saying, oh, how can I use the SSO? And we said, okay, you need to do this. This is the documentation. Over and over again, we were getting the same questions. And also some nasty comments. But the patience was wearing out on our side as well. Because, come on, we had the meeting, we had the documentation. Why don't you get it? Can they just read the documentation? Well, I joined the team, and I also asked the question, because when I joined, I found like an incredible amount of documentation on Confluence. And this is a screenshot from the simple documentation related to the tagging strategy. I mean, tagging strategy is not a big deal. It's really like 5 lines of code to say, okay, I want the service name, or I want the owner, and so on. How did they come up, the previous team come up with such a long document? It was super long, super boring, and of course, outdated, because such a long document is doomed to become obsolete. So, again, tagging is so trivial, but nevertheless, the previous team didn't make it because of this disconnection. So, how could we change the approach? We are humans, and we don't like to be patronized. We don't want to be told what to do. If we have to do a diet or quit smoking, either we really believe that, or it's super hard, if not impossible. Of course, here we are talking about enterprise and work, so you have to do what you have to do. But the point is, we need to get the buy-in, and we need to onboard people and to make the change possible. How can we do that, and how can AWS support? AWS has a lot of services that can help us, and more importantly, there are 2 mechanisms that can help us achieve this goal. We have the inform and the enforce mechanism that are separated, and we will see that now. One way to enforce the tagging policies, the tagging strategy is using tagging policies. With AWS organization, you can write a definition of the tags that you want. You can see here, we want the Safdesk owner. And for the tag Safdesk owner, we just want the name of the teams in this format. So no inconsistencies, because some teams are using camel case, neck case, capitalize, and so on. It's simple, just like this. And we want the tags enforced for all these resources, API Gateway, Dynamo, and so on. These allow us to define the tags, but this does not prevent the resources from being created without a tag. For that, we need to use the service control policies. The service control policies are guidelines that can prevent actions. And then here you see that we deny the creation of a cluster or a database or a Lambda function for these resources if the Safdesk owner is missing. So these 2 things together allow us the enforcement of these tags with these specific values. Knowing this, we started writing a very long service control policy, because as you see, you need to specify all the resources and all the actions. So it's very tedious, it's error prone. Some resources don't even support the tagging policies, but we spent some time to write the service control policies until we tried to deploy that. And we realized that there is a limit of 5,000 characters, and we said, okay, no big deal, we can split that into multiple smaller policies, which could even be nicer because we can separate the serverless resources from the non-serverless. We can focus on the data, the resources used by data like Redshift from the other one. No big deal. It is a big deal because there is also a limitation on the number of policies that you can apply for organization and accounts. And as I said, it's very tedious. So we decided we needed to reduce the scope and focus only on what was most important. What is most important? The resources that are used the most and the resources that cost the most. And to do that, to understand what were these heavy hitters, we used this tool, which is really recommended. SteamPipe allows you to run SQL queries against the AWS API, and you get all the information also on all the accounts that you have at once. So it's really a great tool. By having this understanding, you can then enforce only the critical the compliance on these tools. And all the rest, we needed to find alternative means. So reduce the number of policy, focus everything in place, we can enforce. Not really, because we talk about inform and enforce. The enforce part was good. But when we introduced the tagging strategy to the teams, we also told them, hey, you guaranteed that this is not breaking. Like you will have to make these changes, but nothing will happen. You can be sure that we don't want to end up like the old team. But we weren't sure that we could keep up to this promise. So we decided to wait, to change the deadline, say, okay, we will enforce that in 2 months so that you can fix all the things. And luckily, in order to understand what would have happened, luckily at the time, the AWS Resource Tagging Standard was made publicly available, and it works on Security Hub, which we already integrated for other security benchmarks and best practices. So it was just a matter of specifying the resource tagging standard, specifying the list of tags that needed to be present for the resources. As you see, we decided to focus only on 5, not like 20 or more than that were listed in the documentation, so focus only what was really important for us. And owner and service was very important for us, and so criticality and confidentiality was for incident management and security to understand, okay, how fast do we need to react if this resource is impacted. Easy. We know we can now figure out how many resources are not compliant. We wait the next day, and then we realized that we were a little bit far away from our goal, and thanks God we didn't deploy the enforcement, because otherwise it would have been a bloodbath with all the pipelines breaking, all the stuff not working because of these prevent actions. And not only that, the embarrassing part was that almost half of those resources were belonging to my team, because there are a lot of stuff like security permission, security groups, permissions, roles, stuff that is deployed under the hood that was not tagged and was belonging to the platform. So not the best example to show people, oh, you should be compliant and lead by example when you are the first in this situation. So now we have the information, we have the awareness, we know how to enforce it, but we need to find a way to inform people properly, because the findings from Security Hub are not so easy to sift through and to manage, and we wanted to gather this information and then send out messages, broadcast a weekly report to the teams. This weekly report had two goals. The first goal is giving a sense of achievement and rewarding teams that are taking this seriously and working on that, saying, hey, thank you, your percentage is getting smaller and smaller, or catching up with the people whose product owner maybe is neglecting the work on this, and avoid coming up to the next deadline with nothing, where nothing changed, because this is also something that happens. You give people a chance to do the work, they don't do the work, and then you are at base 0. And yes, by that time, it's their fault, but you don't want to really create damage to the company and really break the entire trust with the other teams. And also, we wanted to find a way, because we didn't deploy the enforcement, we wanted to find a way to have a soft enforcement, so to prevent working on one side, but also making things worse on the other side, like people keeping on deploying resources untagged. We wanted to catch them immediately. So the findings were very noisy, and we needed some information to target people. So we just need a script. Easy? Yes, it's just a script, right? Just is the worst, the most hated word for an engineer and the most loved one for a product owner. It's never just. And we realized it immediately because, of course, if the main goal was for us understanding who was the owner by the tag, how can we know how to get to that people? We don't know the owner. You might say that AWS adds automatically the created by tag. And it's true. It's true and it's working if you are deploying from your machine. But you shouldn't. If you are deploying with a pipeline, then you will be disappointed to see that the created by is simply the role assumed by the GitHub runner. So not much of use. So considering that CloudTrail and created by are not helping us, and that the tags are not there, so in some cases you don't have the criticality and you have the owner, fine, easy, but if you don't have the owner, then you really miss the target. So we decided to rely on multiple sources, and this script grew a little bit, and from a task it became an epic, and because we needed to retrieve this information in order to get in touch with people. So this just a script became two main applications. The first application is relying on AWS config with resource discovered. We are checking for the configuration item changed, and whenever there is a resource discovered that has a change in the configuration, we make sure that, we check if the Safdesk owner tag exists or not. If not, we push it to event bridge that triggers a Lambda. The Lambda will check with CloudTrail if there is some information that we can use to target the team. If not, we retrieve it from GitHub. We check what was the pipeline that deployed the resource. What was who belong, where does the pipeline belong, to which team? Because we know that, so we could retrieve that, and then once we have that, we can push the information to SQS. And then a Lambda aggregates the data to send the Slack notification. Why a queue? The queue was necessary, besides for retries and so on, it was important to avoid spamming the teams, because with AWS config, you receive all these notifications, and by every pipeline that you are deploying, you might be deploying multiple resources. Like if you imagine a very super simple serverless application, API gateway, Lambda, Dynamo table, and role, there are already 5 resources, and you don't want to have 5 messages. So we are aggregating them to send only one, and then say, hey, we know that you deployed without the tags. The second script is, again, what I mentioned for the weekly report. In this case, we have Event Bridge. We are relying on Event Bridge for a cron job that triggers the Lambda. The Lambda checks, calls the security app findings, and then the process is very similar. We check if there is information. Otherwise, we retrieve it from GitHub and SQS, and then report generator. The report generator is writing to Dynamo the stats for each team and retrieves the stats from the previous week in order to send then a message telling people, hey, great job, or we are not there yet. Please read the documentation and contribute to this company goal. So That required some fine-tuning, like adding the queue because we realized that we were getting spammed, fine-tuning the messages, the aggregation, all the resources. But the good thing in this approach is that now that we have this inform and soft enforcement before the hard enforcement in place, we can apply that to basically every other internal compliance or governance initiative. The system is in place, that the communication with the team is already solid, so that we can identify and inform where possible and enforce only when it's necessary. How did this help us? The team originally, the previous team, failed not because they were not great DevOps and cloud engineers. They were very talented, but they felt the urge of achieving compliance all at once. And they lost the focus on the goal, and they completely lost the focus on the people, on the other teams. They were just churning out code and rules and documentation and lending that out to the teams and say, okay, now it's your problem. We are here only with the mandate for you to do these changes. And that creates this disconnect. The important thing, if you really are in the same situation, in the same position for in your company as a platform team or security that has to work on compliance, is coming up with a minimum viable governance. So focus, like if you have a strong team, you know that you can achieve anything, but you cannot do everything. So you really need to focus on what is very important. You can use different methods, urgency, importance, impact, effort, but really try to strip down and focus and then iterate on that. Onboard people, get the buy-in, otherwise you will have a lot of friction because there are, like, security and compliance are often almost conflicting goals because you're standing in the way of the team's goals because they are meant to build new features, ship features fast. And you are there saying, no, you cannot have production, you cannot connect to production database like this from your local machine. Iterate based on feedback and changing priorities. Priorities change all the time, so sometimes it happened on this project. We were super focused and then we drop it for a few months to focus on something else. This happens. There's no need to just go crazy on a deadline, which is arbitrary, and especially based on feedback, because there are comments. Shift to the communication ways. At the beginning, we had kickoff meeting and deadline meeting where we were saying, okay, next week, it's over. That didn't work, and the documentation only didn't work. So we need to find these different ways, and one was having this communication with the Slack channel and the Slack reports. But most importantly, especially as a platform engineering team, there is this pattern of collaboration of embedded expert or tour of duty, and we use both. The embedded expert means that you, like one team member, rotates and goes into the other teams to bring knowledge, explain whatever initiative you are executing, take some part of the grunt work while pairing with people and let them learn from that. Tour of duty is the opposite. People come into the team and working within the team for a couple of weeks to understand from our perspective what's the interaction, what are the needs, and why we are doing things. This is super useful. Compliance is a journey. It won't happen overnight. It requires incredible amount of patience and empathy and effort. Really iterate, focus on the quick wins, and build momentum. Change is hard at the beginning, it's messy in the middle, and it's gorgeous at the end. I cannot say that it's already gorgeous in our company. I hope and I think that we are contributing to that, but it's getting better, much better. So Thank you very much. We have a few minutes. Please scan for the feedback. It's very important for the organizers and also for me. And if you want, you can connect with me or ask me questions.
We have time for questions, so I'll reach you with a microphone. Just wait. Go first. Fight.
Thank you very much for a very good talk and overview of your journey. It was not quite clear to me when you say that you were helping people or other colleagues of you to somehow fix what they have created. But what was your tasks, or what did you do to help these people to be able to create immediately valid code? Let's say when you decide that, okay, from tomorrow we need to be compliant, so don't even create bad things, let's fix something.
Yes, great question. This is what is actually the core part of our role as platform engineering. And what we do is working with Terraform modules and like creating the building blocks that the teams are supposed to use. So, and this is also why having this embedded expert is very useful, because we can work with the teams and understand what are their needs. It's also a little bit of dog fooding, like you put yourself in their shoes and you see what are their pains, and then you can collect ideas and have the overview of the differences, the variations in the different teams, and say, okay, this team is doing this not optimally, this team is doing that and it's completely wrong. We can collect the two things and come up with a Terraform module that then they can use, and whenever they want a database, they can, instead of using the snippet of Terraform to create a new Aurora database, they can just use our snippet that contains the backups, the encryption, whatever. In general, this is what we do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very first question is, I still have the initial question unanswered. So do the actually user hate your platform team or not?
Some do, some still do. Most appreciate the effort, let's say.
No, seriously, you know, I saw that you share some interesting numbers as well, the number of findings that you had, and when I have those kind of numbers, I usually feel overwhelmed, like, okay, I have 9,000 failures, where should I even start? So I was wondering what's your journey, and I'm not saying tell me how, I assume you're not down to zero, I assume you're not close to zero, but how do you monitor? I mean, do you have target, do you have goals, do you have any metric? Yeah. I wouldn't call it KPI or whatever, but it's just how you go that direction.
We don't have them, unfortunately, because of these shifting priorities that I mentioned. This is more as an engineering manager, it's my goal for the team, so I'm keeping track of that. But yes, it's overwhelming. It's like a little bit like alerting fatigue if you have a lot of monitoring and observability, like you don't know where to start. It helps that you can prioritize, but it is really overwhelming. You would need one person full time just to check that and fix all of this. So yeah, like with alerting fatigue, sometimes you just switch off and say, okay, let's reduce the number. And this is what we did. Like, besides the service control policy that is super huge, and we had to reduce that, we also reduced the scope, because otherwise it would have been impossible to show the teams a little bit of progress. So we shut down some of the findings. We ignored some of the findings in order to tell them, hey, you had 100 resource and now you are 98 or 50. If you have 10,000 and if you fix 5,
yeah,
it's like, oh, okay, I improve like 0.001%, whatever. We will never be ready. So yeah, I don't have a solution, fortunately, but
Thank you.
We still have a few minutes. Oh, right there. Hey, where are you going?
So yeah, thanks a lot for the session. Oops.
No.
Closer. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot. So I'm also curious about communication strategy. So you mentioned that having a connection within the team is really important. But how scalable is that? So I don't know the exact numbers of how many teams are within your platform, but how do you scale, like having to support all these teams within a small number of engineers, I would say?
Valid question. We have 15 teams, 85 engineers. My team is 5 engineers. I would like to have twice as much. What we do is we still have this channel, the help center, where we respond to questions, and we rotate that. We have the engineer of the day is basically in charge of answering the questions and keeping track of the communication with the teams. And what we also have, what we introduce is the so-called DevOps champions. So after this embedded expert and tour of duty happened for at least one round, there is one person in each team that has interest or was picked to become the DevOps champion, and they are direct contact, the counterpart for any communication. And we have bi-weekly meetings for the DevOps champions where we discuss in general topics or collect ideas or complaints and so on.
Hello, I have another question, which is, how do you balance the reliability of the platform, the continuous changing, and the developer experience?
Yeah, we don't. We don't. I mean, I joined the company 15 months ago. We achieved a lot, but we have still quite some stuff to